Hello everyone, thank you for watching NG preparation. Today we're going to go over Title 6 of the November 2021 essay titles for TOK. So the title reads, "We are rarely completely certain, but we are frequently certain enough. Discuss the statement in relation to two areas of knowledge." So the first thing is to find a definition for certainty that suits you. So certainty is something for which there is no possibility of any other result. So this has relevance to the ways of knowing of faith, because faith, according to the TOK textbook, can be considered a belief in something for which there is no proof. So to have faith in assumptions or in conclusions that are not completely certain is relevant to the way of knowing of faith. I also did a similar video on the May 2021 essay titles that also had to do with faith and axioms in mathematics, which may also be of relevance for this essay title. But this also relates to the notions of pragmatism when we think about what it means for something to be true. So although we can never have complete certainty, according to pragmatists, we think that what is useful in terms of conclusions is then what is true. And in reality, a lot of even scientific knowledge in the natural sciences is reliant on assumptions that cannot be proven. And this is actually David Hume's problem of induction. So a lot of the things that we justify, so for example, believing that the sun will come out tomorrow and it will set in the evening, the assumption that will happen is just based on the fact that we saw it happen yesterday and the day before that. And that's the issue, that a lot of what we know, if anything, everything that we know is inductive, because we cannot observe everything at all times, so we have to make assumptions and it's never certain. So for this essay, you might come across a central knowledge question or create a central knowledge question that goes along the lines of, to what extent is taking uncertain assumptions as given useful to the production of knowledge? So is this able to create reliable shared knowledge in the areas of knowledge? So for example, if we look at the natural sciences as an area of knowledge, then we can talk about how the scientific method relies on natural observation, and even sense perception as a way of knowing can be considered unreliable and uncertain. So in the development of your first paragraph, you can talk about why sense perception is not certain, it's not definite, but then why the scientific method mitigates this uncertainty by making the scientific method replicable. So in other terms, everybody should be able to conduct the scientific method and receive the same result, in this way making sense perception more reliable. But even then, we cannot know that even the natural world exists outside of our own minds. In other words, solipsism could be true, in which case nothing is true except for our own imagination and minds. So we see that in even something as objective and reason-based as the scientific method, we still start from a point where we're making assumptions about the fact that the sun will come out tomorrow, or that the natural world has laws that it will always follow. And so even though we're not certain about this, we're certain enough because through observation we've seen that this has been the case again and again. And even though that's not rational, from a pragmatic point of view, it is enough to justify that as knowledge. But on the other hand, you could easily argue that a pragmatic point of view of truth is not enough. It's maybe not enough to think that what is useful is also true, because then that maybe forces us or makes it easier for us to not question the validity of dominant theories in the natural sciences, for example. So from a pragmatic point of view, something is true if it matches the facts, if it is coherent in the system, and if it works in practice. But in reality, there's nothing to say that there could be two theories that work in practice. And of course, no scientific theory is ever proven. And you can also take that approach in talking about why the fact that scientific theories are never proven, why that's a level of uncertainty that we're willing to look over, because we still rely on these scientific theories when going about our daily lives, so for our personal knowledge, but also when advancing scientific shared knowledge. But on the other hand, you can have two theories in the scientific system or in the natural sciences that do work in solving our issues. And the problem is, as Thomas Kuhn points out in his theories of scientific revolutions and in paradigm shifts, we tend to believe in the dominant system and not question it until there's a crisis. In other words, until there's something that completely collapses what we think is true, because we find an observation that goes against what we had previously believed. And so you should also try to come up with a secondary knowledge question to integrate within your paragraphs. If you need help with the structure, I will link here another video that goes more in depth about what the TOK essay should be structured as. But a potential secondary knowledge question is, How does faith in the certainty of uncertain scientific shared knowledge reduce the reliability of the scientific method? So, in other words, is it acceptable to have some degree of faith in things that are not proven? So, for example, in previous scientific theories that can never be proven? Or is it better to take a more falsification theory approach? So, to constantly be trying to poke holes in the present theory so that when we do have a theory, we know that it's reliable and it's not subject to confirmation bias. But to what extent is it okay to have trust in these unproven things in order to advance further the shared knowledge? And then, of course, your TOK essay should also focus on another area of knowledge. So, in the human sciences, you could be looking about economic models, for example, and why economic models are uncertain in the sense that they take very reductionist approaches to their assumptions. So, for example, law of demand, the idea that people will consume less of something whenever the price goes up, ceteris paribus, assuming all things remaining equal. You would look at these things and say whether it is okay to trust and to put faith in these models because they are useful, because they do work in practice a lot of the time, or whether it is actually um, counterproductive to believe heavily in these simplified models. And then for history, you could talk about how some uses of evidence for historical shared knowledge, for example, testimonies, can be considered unreliable, and this makes sometimes historical facts uncertain. And you could look at whether it is more harmful than good to trust in these things blindly, especially given that historical shared knowledge has very strong ties to our personal knowledge and our understanding of where we stand in the world. And you could, for example, use examples as real life situations of cases where people are debating what happened historically and then how that affects their culture and their social norms. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that this was helpful. Again, this was just some very brief ideas about how to answer the November 2021 TOK Title 6. If you would like more information about the TOK structure of the essay, then I suggest that you look at the video that I will leave here. If you would like one-on-one help with your personal essay, then I suggest that you click the apprentice link, which I will have in the description below, and I'm free to arrange a lesson whenever.